Good afternoon. My name is Danica Weepa. I'm the RKL eSolutions Marketing Manager. Thank you for joining us today. Today we will have AvidXchange present to us on their AvidPay and how to take your accounts payable to the next level. I have Brittany and Rhonda with me today, and I will let them take it away.
Just a little bit about myself. My name is Rhonda Green, and I'm the director of our solutions consulting team here at AvidXchange. I also have worked in accounting for many, many years, managing large AP departments. So AP has always been something that is near and dear to my heart, and something that I really enjoy helping other companies with as far as creating efficiencies, automation, etc. So for the agenda today, we're going to talk about the latest advances in electronic payments, common misconceptions, power of the supplier network, and then pay automation with AvidXchange. So who is AvidXchange? So we've actually been in business since the year 2000, and we're headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. We currently have over 1,200 employees, and we're always growing. We've had 43% year-over-year growth. We've also been awarded a Best Places to Work award from the Charlotte Business Journal. We integrate with over 140 accounting systems. And in 2017, we processed $73+ billion in invoice payment transactions through our AvidPay platform. And also in 2017, we were number 9 on Forbes' top 10 fintech companies in America. And this picture is showing our new headquarters building, which is new. And as you can see, there's also a nice shot of the Charlotte skyline.
And Rhonda, I also wanted to mention RKL was the Avid 2018 Partner of the Year, I believe.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, and also, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box or raise your hand, and we will make sure to answer them. Otherwise, you're all on mute.
All right, thank you. So let's talk a little bit now about the digital shift in the mid-market space. So as I'm sure you're all aware, the industry in terms of digital and ePayments and the shift towards digital has really been on the increase lately. So some of the trends that are driving that digital shift are increasing adoption of connected mobile devices and data connectivity. So gone are the days where controllers, CFOs, others in the accounting space were tied to their desks due to limited availability of having mobile devices or connectivity. Also, there's an increasing necessity for integrated solutions. Also, increasing importance for data to drive critical business decisions. So the industry pressures driving the innovation. Labor shortages, I think we've all seen that in the past. Tight approval schedules, making sure that invoices and payments are approved in a timely fashion, and productivity. And one of the results of an inefficient process is overspending. So it's important to invest in technology to optimize your time and money. There's been a recent polls that have been released and studies done by different companies that show that the annual costs associated to chasing AP information, resolving conflicts, and correcting mistakes in a manual AP world is $177 billion. Can you imagine that? That is just spent on going through mounds of paper and doing manual inefficient tasks. Also, 35% or 2 days a week of an employee's time is spent on ineffective tasks, which translates to more than 14 hours lost per person each week. And I know when I started in accounting back in the late 80s, everything was paper-based. We had rows and rows and dedicated rooms of file cabinets. We also had to pay for off-site storage because everything was paper-based and it was all manually entered, manually coded. And not to mention, we were tied to our desk. We had to actually come in the office if we needed to close the month or to work over. So absolutely, when you think about a manual process versus an automated, I can definitely vouch for this amount of time that is lost doing those ineffective tasks. So let's talk a little bit about electronic payments and why the need for electronic payments. So mobile technology and digital commerce are driving the need for a safer and faster payment system in the U.S. Today, it is estimated that there is $127 trillion flowing through in electronic payment form. The experts are estimating that by the year 2028, that number will almost double to $200 trillion. So the Goldman Sachs September 2018 Equity Research Report estimates this 5 times increase. I mean, can you imagine? That is a significant increase and really speaks volumes to getting out of the paper check business. Because currently today it is estimated that still 60%, and I've actually heard numbers higher than that, of B2B payments in North America are still made with paper checks, while the rest of the world has already shifted away from paper checks and are more involved with electronic payments. 60% and more. So some of the latest advances in electronic payments, the first one I'd like to talk about are virtual cards and the way they work. If you're not familiar with them, virtual cards work almost like a prepaid debit card. So there's not an actual tangible card that is used, but it's an actual number. So a 16-digit card number is created that is for that specific vendor, that specific dollar amount. And it allows companies to maintain better control over their use and to set the limits. And so when a virtual card is being issued, that card number is being issued, like I said earlier, to that specific vendor for that specific dollar amount. So it greatly, greatly reduces fraud in the payment space, because once that card number is processed, then that card number becomes invalid. So if a payment is sent to that same vendor the next week, a new 16-digit card number will be created. So more and more suppliers are adopting the virtual cards as their preferred payment method, ease of use, again, the fraud prevention and protection benefits, and again, just knowing that you're not having to wait for a paper check to come in the mail. Also, real-time payments, and this is definitely relatively new. It was launched by the Clearinghouse in November of 2017, and it works in the background, underpinning a financial institution's customer-facing system for services like bill payment and cash management. So this actually allows for same-day payments. So every U.S. financial institution should have access to real-time payments, the network, by the year 2020. So if you look at what we're showing on the screen here now, you can see how it really is a direct connect to financial institutions and allowing for businesses to receive their funds in a real-time format. These aren't the latest advances, but two also very popular electronic payment methods are the wire payment, which is again a real-time method of transferring immediate funds. So again, that same day, typically the cost is higher with a wire payment than it is with an ACH payment. And then also EFT payments, which are electronic funds transfer. So the money is actually transferred from one bank account to another, but it doesn't have to be initiated directly by a bank. So now let's talk about some common misconceptions around AP automation. So typically synonymous with invoice routing and approval, of course, AP automation, but it doesn't have to end there. So an automated payments process includes rule-based workflows for approval and final sign-off on those payments, multiple payment methods from a single pay file. So today, when most companies are paying some of their payments with checks, some with ACH, some with a wire, they're having to create separate payment files or separate check runs. So this payment automation will eliminate that, saving time for the end customer. Also, a complete invoice-to-pay solution, which is integrated with your accounting system, and the opportunity to earn rebates on electronic payments. So just think about the AP department actually having the ability to become more of a profit center through those rebates. So 5 common misconceptions of ePayments and automation. Misconception number 1, our payment process isn't broke, so why should we fix it? Besides, it takes too much time to implement a new process. Also, I won't have visibility and control over my payments and payment statuses if I switch to an automated system. Number 3, payment automation will hurt my relationships with my vendors. Number 4, all of my suppliers prefer to be paid via check. And finally, my bank can provide me the same services that a payment automation solution offers. So let's dive into each one of those misconceptions. So again, our payment process isn't broken, so why should we fix it? Well, you know, it may not be broken, it may be working for you today, but I can guarantee you if you're still using a manual process, it is costing you money. And I know a lot of folks are uncomfortable with the idea of it being, you know, completely online, but a paper check is really a precursor to an electronic payment anyway. And the front end of a payment check is the only part that is still manual. Everything on the back end is automated and electronic. So that process of actually having to order check stock, put it in the printer, print the paper checks out, stuff the checks, all of that is costing you money. It's all very labor intensive. And as you can see here, a manual payables process can cost you $7.15 per payment versus an automated process that costs only $3 per payment. I won't have visibility or control over my payments. You won't have the same control and visibility, but you most definitely will have more. So in an automated system, you can easily retrieve invoice and payment information at any time from anywhere. So think about that again. So invoices can be approved, payments can be approved from the beach. If your CFO, your controller is on vacation, no longer are you waiting for them to come back into the office. So that's very powerful. Also, built-in controls can be used to monitor spending and trigger workflows. So today, if you have a check signing process that requires, let's say, 2 signers over in payments over $5,000, that control is still in place, but it is now done electronically, so much more efficiently. You can also set up routing and alert notifications to managers and employees for approval and compliance. So again, the controls are not only are they still there, but they're even strengthened. And then sending enhanced remittance data for easy reconciliation. So how many times have you sent a payment to a vendor and the payment actually is for multiple invoices, and the vendor has to call you because they're having a hard time applying that payment? Also, that can be eliminated because of the rich remittance information that is sent with ePayments. The next one, payment automation will hurt my supplier relationships. So some of the benefits of ePayments to your suppliers include receiving their payments quicker, which includes more of that rich remittance information that I just talked about. Also, it can improve cash flow with more immediate payments. It can eliminate check processing costs and reduce the time spent on processing. And it can digitalize the paper trail. And finally, increase security through not storing bank account information. So again, today, if you're making payments to suppliers via ACH, you're having to gather that supplier's bank account information, the routing number. If they make changes, you're having to maintain that. What if a number is transposed or entered incorrectly, then you have to go through that process of correcting that payment. So that obviously is a huge amount of time savings on your end alone. And with AvidXchange, our supplier portal enables suppliers to see the status of invoices and payments and gives them access to financing options that enable them to get paid more quickly on invoices that require approval. The next one, all of my suppliers prefer to be paid by check. The choice can still remain the suppliers. So payment automation offers your suppliers choices. And so if they want to be paid with a check, we can accommodate that. But what we find is that many suppliers would actually prefer to be paid electronically because, again, they're getting their funds much quicker and more securely. So some of the main variables in the cost of paper checks include check volume, labor costs, the check and envelope supplies, printing and mailing preparation, postage, bank processing fees, check reconciliation, the time spent doing that, dealing with lost checks, the vendor questions. All of this goes with the paper check. So when you really sit down and think about, we talked about that $7 plus number for the cost of a payment. When you sit down and really think about it, all of these things that I just mentioned make up that cost. So I know a lot of times when we're talking to people and ask if they know what it costs them to cut checks today, a lot of them don't know. Or maybe they think it's much less because they're not considering all of the fees and the labor and all of that involved with cutting paper checks. So definitely something to keep in mind. Also, we hear, my bank can provide the same service as a payment solution. Well, here is great examples of the differences between a payment automation solution and a typical bank payment program. So for payment automation solutions like Avid, we manage your supplier data and those accepted payment types, where on the bank side, that responsibility typically falls on your company. So it's more of a self-service model where you have to reach out to your own vendors to convert them over to different payment methods. And on the payment automation solution side, we integrate directly with the ERP, where with a bank, you have to manually enter updated payment info into your ERP. So big difference there. Also, a payment solution works with unlimited banks and bank accounts. But with the bank, typically you're only using that bank, so it limits your options. Also, with a payment solution, you have a variety of types offered to support the supplier needs. So again, it's more than just that paper check. It's more than just that ACH payment. And with a typical bank program, again, limited to fewer payment methods. And also with a solution like AvidXchange's AvidPay, our service teams actually are performing the due diligence on outstanding payments. We're making sure those payments clear. We're working with vendors. We're calling vendors if payments remain outstanding. But in a typical bank program, that process still falls on you, the customer. And then finally, the conversion rate. You know, we are actually contacting the supplier base to identify accepted payment types. And again, with a typical bank program, you're having to do that yourself. So much different with a payment automation solution. So some of the benefits of automation, again, we're going to improve your supplier relationships. We're going to also streamline we're going to improve cash flow forecasting with improved visibility. We're going to streamline that payment process by reducing cycle time and the costs associated. We have dedicated resources for reconciling payment errors. And also, you will have access to enhanced reporting on those payment transactions 24/7. So AvidXchange offers a full-service payment offering that converts, on average, 40% of payments to electronic payments. And think about that. So today, for those payments that you're making with a paper check, and again, with all of the time spent to cut those checks and get them out the door, we can actually, on average, convert 40% of those over to an electronic payment. Very powerful. So having access to a supplier's network is everything. So AvidXchange actually has the largest B2B payment network for the middle market. On the screen here, it actually says 400,000 plus suppliers, but really that number grows every single day. The latest number that I heard was well over 450,000. Again, extremely powerful having such a large supplier network and having a team that does the education and enrollment process for you. Again, single payment file output, and then existing payment relationships with suppliers, which result in 3 times higher ePayment adoption. So chances are, you know, about 30% or so of your vendors are already in the AvidPay network and are already receiving payments on behalf of other clients in the network. So productivity gains from ePayment. Eliminates paper, reduces manual labor, and shortens approval cycle times and reduces data errors. And also, as far as an ROI goes, the earnings opportunities with ePayments and payment automation, you know, as you can see here, if we do a typical ROI ABC company that processes 300 monthly AP payments, their current state is they are cutting 100% paper checks. So they're spending their time with the manual processes. But with the future, with AvidXchange, that flip-flops, and it's actually 40% become ePayment, and even the checks become, you know, something that AvidXchange will do on your behalf. So your processes become much more streamlined, efficient, just a better process overall. So for this particular ABC company, they can actually expect to see a total annual savings of around $12,000. So in the soft cost, that's $5,400, hard cost $18,000, and then don't forget those annual rebates that can come back to you for those electronic payments, rounding out at $4,500. So let's talk specifically about AP automation with AvidXchange. So again, we are a complete solution for AP and payment automation. So this starts at, we offer purchase order services, AvidXchange PO application. We also offer AvidXchange Invoice, which covers our bill services and the invoice application, meaning that we'll actually gather your invoices, we'll scan them into the system, we'll index them, again, saving you time with those data entry costs. And then that invoice information, all of those invoices that we're capturing and entering for you, those will all sync back over to your ERP system so that when the payment time comes, you're still selecting your payments from your ERP system just like you do today. And again, remembering that we have that powerful services component that goes with our payment services. So the process for the AvidPay network, again, starts in the accounting system. So that's where you'll generate the payments just like you do today. So you'll create your check run, you'll go through that process, but instead of pushing payments out to a check printer and printing paper checks, you'll actually be creating a file that is then sent over to the AvidPay network, where then you can then approve those payments, And after that approval is received, then we will actually debit your account, your bank account, for each one of those payments. So you'll see individual ACH transactions, debits, that will tie back to your accounting system. Your check number is also referenced on your bank statement. And then, of course, we offer the 3 different payment methods. Again, that's the virtual card. We offer what's APD, which is Avid Pay Direct, which is our enhanced form of ACH payment because it includes that rich remittance. And then finally, if the vendor has to have a paper check, we'll cut the check, we'll stuff the envelope, and we'll mail it. And it all ends in a much easier reconciliation process for you. Again, because our service teams are doing that payment follow-up, making sure that payments are clearing. So just to show you a little bit about the software and what it looks like, this is the AvidPay batches screen. So once you create that payment file, and again, when you go through implementation, you'll have a dedicated team, a project manager, and others that will work with you to get the integration going. And you'll actually have an option available to you after that is done that will say Avid Pay. So instead of selecting your check printer, you're going to select the Avid Pay option, which is what creates that file, which is ultimately sent over to the network. And as you can see here, it's going to keep a history of all of the payments and the total dollar amount for each one of those payment batches. You'll have complete views into all of the payment detail, which is what I'm showing you now. So you're going to be able to see not only how your vendor selected to receive payment by looking at the payment method, but also you're going to have complete visibility into when those actual payments are clearing. Again, all within the portal. You don't have to go out to a separate bank's website to get your proof of payment, clear check images, virtual card proof of payment. All of that is stored right here. And you'll have history also to every single thing that happens with that payment from the time that you send it to us until it clears. So the visibility actually increases into your individual payments using payment automation. And again, that proof of payment, both front and back of the check, let me show you what that looks like, is right here, right within the portal. So again, if a vendor calls you and needs proof of payment, you can simply print this out. You can download it. You can email it, whatever you need to do. Also, auditors. Let's think about that. Auditors come in and they audit your accounts payable, typically every quarter. And again, a lot of our clients will give their auditors read-only access to the software. They can actually pull their own selections. So gone are the days of you having to go through filing cabinets and pull out invoices and pull out check copies, because all of those things will be stored electronically. And again, complete control over those payment approvals. So like I mentioned earlier, if you have a check signing process in place today that requires multiple signers, we can mimic that workflow electronically where all of your payments are still being approved before we debit your account for the payments. So again, you're not losing any control whatsoever. If anything, like I said, you're giving a wider range of approval ability to your approvers. And also the reporting that goes with it. So in addition to being able to send your payments through, we're sending out the payments, you can also run reports based on those payments. So you can look at payment detail, payment batch detail, and again, you're going to have complete visibility into the payment methods your vendors have elected and the payment statuses of those individual payments. So just to recap what we've talked about, for the AvidXchange payment application, you're going to continue to select payments from your accounting system, so your accounting system continues to be your system of record. You won't have to print, sign stuff, or mail checks again unless you want to. You'll have fraud protection, so all of the checks, for instance, that are cut off through the AvidPay network are all covered under Payee Positive Pay. So that's a huge fraud prevention tool in and of itself, not to mention the other fraud coverage that we talked about earlier. You can avoid managing all of your supplier bank account information for electronic payments. So no more account numbers and routing numbers. And then also you can maintain all of your existing bank relationships and bank accounts with real-time access to those payment statuses for every payment. Again, we're bank agnostic, so it doesn't matter if you use multiple banks and you pay from multiple bank accounts. We can absolutely accommodate that. So I'm going to turn it over now to see if we have any questions.
Great, thank you, Rhonda. And while we have questions come in, I did just launch a quick poll, and this just allows us to know the best way to follow up with you. So if everyone can just take a few seconds to do that, we will run through Q&A. Okay, so Rhonda, the first question that we have is, what happens if a vendor isn't in your system? What's the level of vendor participation that's needed for the system to work properly?
So great question. So again, we have a dedicated service team of vendor enrollment specialists, and they're going to reach out to the vendor on your behalf and educate them on the different payment methods available to them. We'll ultimately gather all of their information, and then their payments will go out through their preferred method. So no action would be needed on your part, but like I mentioned, you'll still have complete visibility into the payment method your vendor has elected to receive.
Great, thank you. And so another question we had was, are these checks AvidXchange checks or are company checks?
It's a great question. We use a clearing account model currently. So because we're debiting your accounts when you send the payment file to us, the money will have come out of your account and placed into the clearing account. And it's from that clearing account, which is actually maintained and managed by a trustee. The payments are then sent out directly to your vendor. It's a settlement account, so the funds are only in there long enough for the vendor to process the payment.
Great. And another question that we have is, what's the typical processing time for payments once we hit the paid button?
Great question. So for those paper checks, as long as we receive the payment file by 3 p.m. Eastern, checks will be cut that night and mailed out the next business day. And also with our 2 ePayment options, the enhanced ACH and the virtual card, those are also being created beginning the night of day 1, and then they're dispersed by the end of the second day, either directly to the vendor via email or to a payment specialist at AvidXchange, which will go out to the vendor's website or call the vendor on the phone. So another really key aspect of our vendor team is we're not only capturing the payment method the vendor has elected to receive, but also how they want to receive that remittance information. So if a vendor requires us to go out to their website and enter in the payment information that way, we will absolutely do that.
Thank you. And there's just one more question, and that is there a limit of the number of users that are able to access AvidXchange?
No, no limit at all. And it's important to note that we don't charge per user, so you can have as many users as you need.
Great. So one more question that we did have was, what's the cost associated with AvidXchange? Is there a cost per invoice, paid, or users? And I know you quickly talked about the users piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do charge per transaction. So for the invoice automation, it's per invoice, and for the payment, it's per payment. And that is regardless of the payment method. So even if it's a paper check, it's just going to be one price per transaction plus an implementation fee, which can vary. So we encourage you to, contact us and set up a demo where the sales representative will go into additional detail on the pricing.
Great. And the last question is, are we compatible with QuickBooks Desktop?
We are absolutely compatible with QuickBooks. And again, over 140 accounting systems.
Great. That looks like all the questions we have. Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Thank you, AvidXchange, Rhonda, and Brittany for joining us today. Have a great day.